Today's story reveals how easy it is to ignore the earliest red flags, and how devastating the cost can be when trust replaces awareness. It's a reminder that sometimes the truth isn't hidden, we just choose not to look until it's almost too late. Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. The traffic light turned green, but we didn't move. She was staring out the window. I was gripping the steering wheel hard enough to make my knuckles ache, pretending I hadn't just read what I read. The message was still on my phone, burning a hole through my pocket like it had teeth. Check her calendar. Monday, 2:45 p.m., room 418. That was it. No name. No hello. Just cold, precise coordinates. I didn't ask her anything. Not yet. Instead, I said the dumbest thing I've ever said in my life. Do you want to stop for tacos? She smiled. That smile will haunt me. Not because it was fake, but because it wasn't. She looked happy, as if her entire world was intact, as if she hadn't been living two lives right under my nose, as if I was just a windshield, something to look past on the way to somewhere else. We pulled into the taco place we always went to, the one with the rusty sign and the guy who never gets the order right. I watched her walk inside. Casual, light, like she hadn't just left a work party where Braxton from branding kept whispering things that made her giggle too hard. I didn't follow her in. I stayed in the car and pulled out my phone again, reading the message for the 6th time. 2:45 p.m., Monday, room 418. That was 3 days ago. I already knew what I was going to do, but I still hadn't decided whether I wanted the truth. Because deep down, I think I already knew what I'd find in that room, and I wasn't sure I'd survive it. Monday arrived like a weight pressing on my chest. Every minute dragged like it knew I was counting down to something I couldn't unsee. I didn't ask her anything that morning. She made coffee, played her usual morning podcast, and told me about how she might finally get moved to the corporate accounts team. I nodded, smiled, laughed in the right places. I don't think she noticed my hands were trembling when I passed her the car keys. She always drove on Mondays. Said it helped her feel in control. Ironic. She dropped me off at home like always and headed to the office. As soon as her car turned the corner, I went to my laptop. I pulled up the building map of her company, a dull-looking corporate tower I'd visited maybe twice. 10 floors. I scrolled through the directory. No room 418 listed. The 4th floor was all open workspace and some conference rooms named after trees. Birch, maple, juniper. No numbers. I checked again. Nothing. I started to think the message had been a prank. A cruel joke. Maybe one of those creepy spam texts designed to mess with your head. But I couldn't let it go. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't eat. At exactly 2 p.m., I left the apartment, heart racing, palms slick. I parked a block away from her office building and waited. At 2:35, I got out and walked in like I belonged there. No one stopped me. Everyone was glued to their screens or walking around with coffee cups like ants with tasks. I took the elevator to the 4th floor. My stomach was a storm. My ears rang. When the doors opened, I stepped out, trying not to look lost, and scanned the hallway. A long corridor stretched to the right, office doors with frosted glass, some open, some closed. And then I saw it. Tucked away at the end, past a supply closet, was a door labeled simply, for 118. No decoration, no plaque, no window. Just the number, crooked, metallic, and barely hanging on the wood like someone had installed it in a hurry and forgot it existed. I didn't knock. I didn't hesitate. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then the faintest sound. A laugh. A woman's voice, hers. Followed by a lower, male voice I didn't recognize. The laugh wasn't fake. It was soft. Intimate. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. My stomach turned. I wanted to break the door down. But I didn't. I stepped back, took a photo of the door, of the number, and I left. By the time she got home that night, I was in bed, lights off, pretending to be asleep. She crawled in next to me, whispered something about traffic, and kissed the back of my neck. My eyes were open the whole time. I still hadn't said a word, but I had a plan, and the next thing I did would show me everything, whether I was ready for it or not. The next morning, I waited until she left for work, then opened her laptop. It wasn't something I was proud of. I'd never even looked at her phone before this. But something had shifted in me. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I was chasing confirmation. And when you start doing that, you already know. You just want proof strong enough to drown the doubt. Her login password hadn't changed in 5 years. Still my birthday. That stung in a weird way. Like some twisted loyalty she kept on the surface while hiding whatever this thing was underneath. I opened her email first. Nothing. All business. I searched for 418. No hits. I tried Caleb, Braxton, even Monday. Still nothing. Then I checked her calendar. She kept it obsessively color-coded. Blue was for meetings, red for deadlines, green for out of office. Monday, 2:45 p.m., was green, but all it said was quiet time. No location. No description. Just that. My hands shook as I clicked through her folders, her photos, anything I could get into. And that's when I found it, tucked inside a random folder labeled Receipts 2022. A video file. No preview. Just a generic name. VID_0418_X. My breath caught. I double-clicked. Black screen. Then shaky footage. A hotel room. Someone must have set a phone on a table or dresser. A woman in a blue dress walked in, Nadine. My wife. She looked different, relaxed, loose. Then a man walked into the frame. His face wasn't fully visible, but his voice said everything. It was the same one I'd heard through that door. Calm. Low. Too familiar for strangers. She leaned into him without hesitation. I paused the video before it got any further. I didn't need to see more. I closed the laptop and just sat there, staring at the wall. Not crying. Not yelling. Just frozen. Like my body didn't know how to react yet. My wife recorded this. Hid it. Saved it under something I'd never look at. Which meant she knew it was wrong. Which meant she didn't care. And then, my phone buzzed again. No name. No message. Just a new photo. A different room. A different man. But the same woman. And I suddenly realized. Room 418 wasn't the only one. I didn't know what to do with the photo. It was low quality, clearly taken on a hidden camera or maybe from a distance, but it was unmistakably her, standing in the hallway of a different hotel, one I didn't recognize. The man beside her wasn't the same guy from the video. This one was older, dressed sharp, not the casual tech bro energy of the last one. He was reaching into his pocket, and Nadine was laughing at something he said, her hand casually on his chest like it belonged there. I just sat there, phone in hand, replaying every word she'd ever said about work trips and networking events. There weren't many. She kept those parts of her life vague, and I'd never pushed. That was the deal we had. I trusted her, and she didn't give me reasons not to. Until now. And yet, even with all this building up, part of me still wanted to believe there was some explanation. That she was being blackmailed, or framed, or going through some weird identity crisis. Something, anything, that didn't make her the villain in the story I was living. But I couldn't unsee the video. I couldn't unfeel the tension in her touch lately, like every kiss was rehearsed. I couldn't pretend I hadn't noticed how often she started staying late for work, or how her phone always seemed to be face down lately. Still, I didn't confront her. I knew better now. I wasn't going to give her the chance to twist this around. I needed to be ahead of her. For once. So, I replied to the anonymous number for the first time. Just one word. Why? Seconds passed. Then a response came through. You really don't know her at all. My stomach dropped. Before I could type anything else, another message came in, an address. It wasn't close. A motel on the edge of town. One of those hourly rate places people pretend they've never noticed. I stared at it for a long time. The message wasn't asking me to come. It was daring me. I waited until the next day. Nadine told me she was meeting a client after work and would be home late. I told her to take her time. I even smiled when I said it. At 6:45 p.m., I parked across from the motel and watched. And at 7:03, I saw her car pull in. Alone. But she didn't stay alone for long. What I saw next wasn't what I expected. Because the man who got out of the other car, I knew him. And I wasn't supposed to. I stayed in the car with the engine off, lights off, barely breathing. There was no way I was seeing what I was seeing. But the streetlights didn't lie. The man who stepped out of that dark, gray BMW was someone I hadn't seen in over a year, Wesley. My former best friend. My best man. The guy who used to come over every Sunday with beer and bad opinions about movies. The guy who held my wife's bouquet while we said our vows. The guy who, up until a few months after the wedding, was like a brother to me. And then, slowly, he drifted. No fight. No drama. Just excuses. He got busy. Stopped replying as fast. I assumed life had just pulled us in different directions. But now I was watching him walk across a gravel parking lot toward a motel room that my wife had just unlocked. He didn't knock. He just walked in like he'd done it 100 times. Nadine didn't even turn to look back. I sat there for 10 minutes, numb. Not angry. Not sad. Just hollow. Like someone had reached inside me and rearranged everything I thought I knew. Because this wasn't some random fling. This had history. This was rot that had started years ago, maybe before we even got married. And I had been too blind, too trusting, too eager to believe that love was simple. That loyalty was automatic. I should have gone home. I should have just driven away and started planning what came next. But I couldn't. I had to know how deep this went. So I got out of the car, walked across the street, and stood by the row of vending machines just out of view of their room. I didn't have a plan. I just stood there, listening. I could hear muffled voices, laughter, the occasional thud of footsteps. Then, for a moment, silence, followed by something I didn't expect, Wesley's voice, loud enough to catch. He said, "Does he still think you're just tired all the time?" And Nadine laughed. Laughed. Not nervously, not guiltily, but freely. The kind of laugh you save for someone you trust more than the one you lie to. I wanted to break the door down. Not to catch them. Not to yell. I just wanted them to see me. To realize that I knew. That I had seen the truth, finally. But something stopped me. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was shame. Or maybe it was because, in that moment, I knew that the confrontation wouldn't give me closure. It would just give them more power. So I turned around. I got back in the car. And I drove home with the windows down, trying to breathe again. But when I got there, something was waiting for me. On our front door, taped sloppily, was a small envelope with my name on it in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a single Polaroid photo of Nadine, asleep, in our bed. But I wasn't in the picture. Someone else was. I stared at the photo for a long time, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. The colors were slightly off, like most Polaroids, but the image was sharp. Too sharp. Nadine, asleep on her side of the bed, her hair splayed out across my pillow, a bare shoulder, her wedding ring visible. And beside her, in the spot I usually slept, was a man I couldn't fully see. His face was turned away, but his hand was resting across her hip. Casual. Familiar. Like it wasn't the first time. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a still from some hotel security footage. This was our bedroom. Our home. My pillow. Which meant someone had been inside. Not just with her, but in the house. While I was gone. Or worse, while I was there. I started looking around, half expecting someone to be watching me. I checked every lock. Every window. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Some rational explanation for something that had already blown past logic. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? Hi. Someone left me a photo of my cheating wife in my own bed with a stranger. No crime. Just humiliation. So instead, I sat down on the couch, holding that photo like it might bite me. Then I saw something else. On the back of the Polaroid, written in faint ink, almost invisible unless tilted under the lamp, was a short message. She was awake the whole time. That message, "She was awake the whole time," should have broken me. But instead, it did something worse. It made me start reviewing every night we ever spent in that bed. The long silences. The way she'd shift when I got in, never quite turning toward me. How her breathing never fully settled into sleep when I held her. All those nights I whispered I loved her into the back of her neck, thinking she was unconscious. What if she heard every word? What if she was awake, just like in the photo, pretending to sleep through the weight of my love? I couldn't stay in the house. Not with that photo on the coffee table, staring at me like it had more to say. So I left. No destination. Just started driving. My hands were shaking, my head full of noise, but I kept seeing one thing. The curve of her smile as she kissed me goodbye that morning. The same lips that had kissed someone else. In our bed. Under our roof. I had so many questions, but not enough nerve to ask any of them out loud. The fear wasn't in knowing what she'd done. It was in wondering what else I didn't know. How long had she been playing this role? And how many people had seen me as the fool in her little production? About 20 minutes outside the city, I pulled into a gas station just to breathe. I sat there, windows fogging up, until my phone buzzed again. New message. Same number. No name. You're running from the wrong person. I froze. That line, it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a correction. Like whoever was watching me wanted me to know I was missing something. That the real danger wasn't Nadine. Not completely. A second message followed. It wasn't Wesley in the photo. Look again. I opened the image again with trembling hands. Zoomed. Tilted. Squinted through the shadow and grain. And suddenly, my chest collapsed inward. It wasn't Wesley. The jawline was different. The arm, the shape of the hand, thicker. The man in that bed with my wife wasn't her coworker. It was someone else entirely. It was my boss, Marcus, the man who'd promoted me last year, who'd invited both of us to his lake house, who told Nadine she was too good for the cubicle world. I remembered how long they'd talked by the fire while I nursed a headache upstairs, how she laughed louder than usual that night. I thought they just clicked. I thought she was being charming. But now I realized she'd been grooming the moment, and he hadn't been the only one. Because in my inbox, as I sat there outside that gas station, a new email appeared from an address I didn't recognize. No subject, no text, just an attachment. A folder titled, What Elwood Doesn't Know. I didn't open the folder right away. I stared at the name, What Elwood Doesn't Know, and felt something unexpected, peace. I realized I didn't need to see it. Whatever was in there, whatever proof or poison someone had been feeding me piece by piece like breadcrumbs in a haunted forest. I had seen enough. More than enough. The photo. The video. The hotel. The lies. The people I once trusted circling around me like a secret club, smirking behind my back. But the thing that truly broke me wasn't any of that. It was knowing I'd spent years loving someone who'd memorized every version of me just to better hide from the truth. She'd watched me fall apart quietly. She'd stood in our kitchen and kissed me with someone else's fingerprints still on her skin. And she thought I would never know. She believed I was weak. Predictable. Safe. She was wrong. I drove home in silence. When I walked through the front door, she was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, wrapped in that robe I bought her on our 3rd anniversary. She looked up, surprised to see me early. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, calmly, I know. Her face barely moved. No gasp. No panic. Just a long, exhausted silence, like she was waiting for the game to reset again. But this time, I didn't give her the chance. I handed her the photo, told her everything. The motel, Wesley, the video, even Marcus. She didn't deny any of it. In fact, she just nodded, said something like, I thought you'd find out eventually. That was the last time I ever spoke to her. The next week, I filed for divorce. Moved out. Got a new apartment. Quiet part of town, 3rd floor, lots of light. I started seeing a therapist, not because I was broken, but because I needed to understand why I ignored so many signs for so long. I started running, reading. I even got a dog, a scruffy mutt named Theo who follows me from room to room like he's afraid I'll disappear. And here's the crazy thing. I'm happier now than I've been in years. No more guessing. No more half-truths. No more waking up next to someone and wondering who they really are. I'm not saying it didn't hurt. It did. It still does some nights. But pain has a way of sharpening things. You start to see clearly. You stop settling. And you finally stop letting people write your story for you. I don't know who sent those messages. I never found out. Maybe it was someone who pitted me. Maybe someone who wanted revenge of their own. Maybe it doesn't matter. Because the truth found me anyway. And now, for the first time in a long time, I know exactly who I am.